Now, one of the big concerns with the second wave of COVID-19 in Australia is that the lockdown conditions could consign many business operations to the wall. Joining me now is Bill Lang, Director of Small Business in Australia. Can businesses afford another lockdown?
Oh, g'day, Shari. Look, we really can't afford it if, in fact, it means it's going to be many businesses ending up going bankrupt and business owners having to deal with that bankruptcy. So at Small Business Australia, we'd like to see bankruptcy protection really extended for the many businesses that may need to close, as well as I think we should thank the many hundreds of thousands of small businesses that have been educating their customers to follow the basics, to do the things to keep everybody COVID safe.
Look, I think it's very clear, no matter what part of the country you're in, that when you walk the streets, you just see empty shop after empty shop. Do you know what the reality is so far? How many businesses have already had to close their doors?
Yeah, look, it was at least 20% of the 2 million, so 400,000 had closed either temporarily, on a temporary basis, or permanently, and that was 10 weeks ago. Since that time, you'll see there's more for rent, for lease signs up in terms of some of the streets where you're walking around. And there's still a lot of businesses that are waiting to find out, well, what will happen in terms of the end of this month when Treasurer Frydenberg, details what's going to be changing with respect to things like JobKeeper, as well as there's a bunch of things at a state government level around the relationship between landlords and their tenant businesses in terms of how things will get sorted out there.
I mean, that's just extraordinary when you think about it. 20%, 1 in 5 businesses have had to shut down. It's just massive. It's almost unprecedented. Do you think that this is going to get even worse when JobKeeper ends in a couple of months?
I think there's no doubt about that. There are a number of small businesses that have been interacting with us, and they've got employees currently on JobKeeper, but they've actually had no work for them to do because those businesses are actually starved of customers as a result of what's required to deal with COVID with respect to social distancing, etc. Or in fact, they're in locations that it's called lockdown where they're actually not able to have customers at all.
Do you think JobKeeper should be extended for certain industries? If so, which ones? And also, some have suggested that it actually could be a disincentive for people getting back to work because they are receiving funding. Is this your view?
Well, look, I think there'll be some cases where people have been earning more on JobKeeper because it was introduced very quickly than what they were earning when they were working, and then they're not actually coming to work. So that's clearly a problem. Now, if there's no work for people to do, they need to be on JobSeeker and whatever that particular program will become going forward. What's really needed now is to move beyond this concept of the JobKeeper to something we call Business Saver, and to get very specific about which particular businesses can make it through and what is the support that they need in a very direct way with respect to helping them get through. And then for those that won't make it through, we need very specific changes to the bankruptcy laws. So those business owners, they've been the hearts and souls in their local communities. Through no fault of their own, they're going to be put out of business. They shouldn't be made bankrupt. They shouldn't have to deal with all the consequences that currently exist under bankruptcy law. We need them to be able to close the business down, have a COVID business closure, regroup and then get themselves going in a meaningful way afterwards.
Look, given the impact to people's livelihoods, what is your message or what is your request to the premiers across the country who are now considering reintroducing really severe lockdowns?
Well, I think I heard the Premier of New South Wales in the last 24 hours talk about coexisting with COVID-19. And that's very much our view at Small Business Australia. Let's assume that there is no vaccine, and the World Health Organisation saying best case scenario maybe 18 months ago. So we should all be thinking about what does life look like, how does life go on and business go on in a COVID-19 environment. And so there are some real basic things which of course we've been hearing about over and over again, and many small business owners have made significant investments in educating their customers, making the changes that are needed. So, I think the reality of it is that let's assume that we're not going to end up with a cure or a vaccine, that we have to keep operating within this type of an environment. And there will be some businesses that, with social distancing, they can't have customers. They won't be able to change into a more of an online business, and they will need to close gracefully without those implications of being made bankrupt.
Yeah. Look, at the start of the show, I revealed that McDonald's had sent 26 of their employees to get tested, but they were actually turned away by the Victorian Health Department under conflicting health advice. How confusing is it for business when the health officials keep changing their advice, about things like who should get tested?
Yeah, well, look, I think, generically speaking, mixed messages is confusing, and it's been happening, since the very beginning. The rules are changing. And I think, the citizens and small business owners are all intelligent, and we need to sort of have made a bit more visible the invisible. Let's help us understand exactly how it spreads. We see there's some good photos that are made available out of the research. We should be sharing those sorts of things. Calm, consistent communication and education, so we have some ongoing confidence with respect to the way forward.
What about the heavy-handed approach that some of the authorities have had when it comes to enforcing the restrictions? And I'm not talking, I'm talking here like if someone has 1 or 2 extra people in a restaurant and clearly it's an accident, not the situations where you've got thousands of people standing outside without practicing social distancing, but those cases where you have had businesses with just a person or 2 extra accidentally, and they're either hit or threatened with really severe fines.
Well, I think it's just totally unacceptable. It's a bit like we hear about wage theft is the terminology that's used when, the lawyers can't work out how a whole bunch of awards under the Fair Work Act could work out. The ABC can't even work out, and yet employers and small business owners will be accused of breaking the laws and doing X, Y and Z. We have inconsistent communication. It's not clear. Of course, there shouldn't be any heavy-handed. But what about this? Like if I'm driving down the road and I get pulled over by the police for a drug or alcohol test, and I refuse it, I'm put in the back of the divvy van, I'm taken down to the police station, I'm charged. Whereas we've had thousands and thousands of people that have refused to be tested for COVID with no implications. It's just crazy.
No, absolutely, and that's part of the reason we're now having this second wave. Bill Lang, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks a lot.